to worship at First Unitarian Church of Rochester, New York. Our opening hymn, Listen, Open, Serve, is based on the mission, values, and ends of our church community. The text was written by the Crescendo Fund Committee, and the tune is by Sarah Davis, the winner of the Crescendo Fund Hymn Competition. Please join me in singing Listen, Open, Serve.
Listen to all hearts and minds, experiences of all kinds. Through inquiry we find what's true, as hard as it can be to do. Come, listen, open, serve with me together in community. Our hearts are open to be changed by new perspectives, rearrange success and blunder, light our way, transformed by wonder every day. Come, listen, open, serve with me together in community. In partnership we now commit to humble service. We admit that justice starts with you and me. Unlearning white supremacy. Come, listen, open, serve with me together in community.
Welcome to online worship here at First Unitarian Church of Rochester. I'm Shannon Foose, Membership Coordinator, and today's guest preacher is Reverend Yadini Hailu, an ordained UU minister living in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Her practice and ministry are to cultivate spiritual wellness and healing as a lifestyle. She is ecstatic with the opportunities to remember our power and orient our energy to center life and service the ultimate. A first-generation Ethiopian American, she believes the experience of being raised between cultures, Black in the United States, and a woman greatly impact her embodied and philosophical, understanding of liberation. Also leading today are Reverend Sherry Holiday Kwan, Tommy Snell, Arson, and Brock. And behind the scenes, as always, we have Tim Farnham, Emily Sanjanwala, Emma Hale, and our wonderful ushers, making sure everything runs smoothly and safely. Our mission here at First Unitarian is through spiritual connection and community. We listen deeply to others and ourselves, open to wonder and transformation, and serve together with love and humility. I have two announcements today. The first is that I'm teaching UU 101, an introduction to First Unitarian, after service at 11:30. Please check the chat box for the link. And also we'll be having coffee hour, so you'll have a chance to see old friends and meet new friends. Let us all take a breath together as we settle into the sacred place and time. Please join me in our chalice lighting and say our unison words together. May the flame we now kindle inspire us to use our power to heal with love, to help with compassion, to bless with joy, and to seek liberation in the fullness of community.
Just like now, in my late teens, ordering takeout was a singular joy. I moved across the country, and now in the company of new friends, we were ordering Chinese takeout, and I was discovering the delights of things like crab rangoon, Chinese food that I had never experienced before, even though I'd been eating Chinese food my whole life. Strangely, the intersection of the food that I grew up with and this new joyful takeout was sweet and sour chicken. And one day I was overcome with the deep desire to make it. I figured, having spent decades in the kitchen absorbing the lessons of my father and my grandmother and other people who knew how to cook, surely I too would know how to cook this dish. I knew to buy chicken and cornstarch, ketchup and vinegar and a little bit of sugar and pineapple juice. I knew how to cut the chicken perfectly, to dredge it in cornstarch and fry it up to just the perfect color. I knew to combine ketchup, strangely, with a little bit of vinegar and an even smaller amount of sugar and pineapple juice. And having done all of this to find this beautiful dish at the intersection of my old life and new life, I knew there was something that just wasn't right. I'd combined those ingredients, but I looked at it and I called my dad. Dad, what do I do? I've done all of these things. I've combined the right ingredients, but how do I know that it's right? My dad started with honey, as he always does when he's serious. And what we're talking about essentially is fried chicken with ketchup. So how serious could it be? But he was serious. And so he started with honey. You have to taste it. What? I said. You have to taste it to know if it's good. And this is why we come to church. We come because you have to taste it to know if it's good. Having taken the experiences of our past and this new community of people, having brought together all the ingredients to make a good life, we have to taste it to know if it's good. I come here because here I get a taste of the good life. Here I get a sense of what works and what still needs some practice or refinement. I hope this is why you come too. Welcome to First Unitarian. Welcome to church.
Please join me in singing our next hymn, What a Wonderful World.
I see trees of green, red roses too. I see them bloom for me and you, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. I see skies of blue and clouds of white, the
Emergence is beyond what the sum of its parts could even imagine. A group of caterpillars and nymphs might not see flight in their future, but it's inevitable. It's destiny. Oak trees don't set an intention to listen to each other better or agree to hold tight to each other when the next storm comes. Under the earth, always, they reach for each other. They grow such that their roots are intertwined and create a system of strength which is as resilient on a sunny day as in a hurricane. Dandelions don't know whether they are weed or a brilliance, but each seed can create a field of dandelions. We are invited to be that prolific and to return fertility to the soil around us. Cells may not know civilization is possible. They don't amass as many units as they can sign up to be the same. No, they grow until they split, complexify, then they interact and intersect and discover their purpose. I am a lung cell, I am a tongue cell, and they serve it, and they die. And what emerges from these cycles are complex organisms, systems, movements, societies. Nothing is wasted or a failure. Emergence is a system that makes use of everything in the iterative process. It's all data. Octavia Butler says, civilization is to groups what intelligence is to individuals. It is a means of combining the intelligence of many to achieve ongoing group adaptation. She also says, everything you touch, you change. Everything you change changes you. We are constantly impacting and creating, changing our civilization, each other, ourselves, intimates, strangers, and in that reality, we are working to recreate a world that is by its very nature in a constant state of change. But Janine Bayes, the mother of biomimicry, says nature would always create conditions conducive to life. She tells of a radical fringe of scientists who are realizing that natural selection isn't individual, but mutual. That species only survive if they learn to be in community. How can we, future ancestors, align ourselves with the most resilient practices of emergence as a species? Many of us have been socialized that constant growth and critical mass are the ways to create change, but emergence shows us that adaptation and evolution depend more upon critical connections. Dare I say, love. The quality of connection between the nodes in the pattern. And we know how to connect, and we long for it. Notice what it takes to respond well, how it feels to be in a body, in a whole, separate, aligned, cohesive, critically connected. Now, let's get more complex.
As if we are oak trees, growing roots of resilience without setting intentions to listen better. Let's collectively cease for just a moment from talking. Please join me in shared silence. No matter how settled or unsettled you or I might feel, gravity holds us. You are connected to the ground, directly or with a chair or with a lap separating you. You are still connected and breathing. In that moment of silence that we shared, cells burst within us, divided, growing, destined to be. What a miracle that any of us are here. What a miracle that all of us are here. What a gift, and also a burden at times, that we are bound together. Everything you touch, you change. Everything you change changes you. Nothing is wasted or a failure. Emergence is a system that makes use of everything in its iterative process. It's all data. And like a stand of trees, our data is not ours alone, but shared. A fungus or a flock of birds comes in, and we know. What is touching or changing you? If there's something you're carrying in your heart or your body today, I invite you to share it into the chat. Like a stand of trees, we bear witness to the joys and the sorrows of each other. We bear witness to the changes and the waiting, the deep call of patience in each other's lives. And so for the next few minutes, you're invited to type it into the chat or share it with the people in the room with you, the cat or the plants, or simply say it aloud. Name the changes alive in your life. Our collective voices rise up. Rise up to speak what is true in our lives. Rise up to listen well, whether we named the intention previously or not. The moment invites us now to listen to each other, to celebrate and to weep, and to know that none of us are alone. It is a miracle that each of us is here. It is a miracle that all of us are here. By our collective witness, by the truth in our words, may we be held and healed by our gathering. May it be so. Amen.
I'm kindred spirits with Adrienne Marie Brown, who wrote our reading we had earlier today about her observation of fractals, her charge for adaptation back in 2013. After poetically noting what nature does so well in our wonder-filled world, with dandelions and trees and caterpillars, and in other writings she talks about fungi and other examples, she brings the fractals to our own bodies. She said, quote, "Cells may not know civilization is possible. They don't amass as many units as they can sign up to be the same. No, they grow until they split, complexify. Then they interact and intersect and discover their purpose. I'm a lung cell. Oh, I'm a tongue cell. And they serve it and they die. And what emerges from these cycles are complex organisms, systems, movements, societies. Nothing is wasted or a failure. Emergence is a system that makes use of everything in the iterative process. It's all data." End quote. Her clarity in the cyclical, needful rules of adaptation that life organizes within, the endlessness of change, give me hope and language for a life of meaning and purpose amid so much chaos. I don't know about y'all, but I have a great hunger, even an ache, to live my theology in a way that my life is charged by ancient and beautiful imperatives. To shape these fractals, we must acknowledge what shapes us. Whether your guiding impulse is for security or freedom, life experience has proven to me what history also reflects. Life is constantly under the influence. We are influenced by information we receive internally from our own bodies, our senses, our mind, and our body, senses, and mind are conditioned. They're trained and imprinted by our society, family, friends, language, climate, diet, entertainment, and all of these are influenced by governments and media and education, and they are all influenced by more humans, complexified with histories and lineages which create patterns that shape and mold our seemingly spontaneous and free outlook and direction. Simply put, we are all already tethered, harnessed to external obligations which push and pull on our psyche and emotions. The Bhagavad Gita is a single conversation which condenses Vedic wisdom into 18 chapters and is the pillar text of yoga, the ancient practice of binding oneself to the ultimate. The Bhagavad Gita states in chapter 14, text 5, quote, "Material nature consists of the three modes: goodness, passion, and ignorance. When the living entity comes in contact with nature, one becomes conditioned by these modes." End quote. Modes of nature either train us into disconnecting from our power, like the mode of ignorance, or the influence of the mode of passion is to misdirect our energy to shallow thrills. Or we are influenced to be supportive of creating and curating an environment of growth and healing and service, like the mode of goodness. We can observe the influence of these various modes and the degrees of awareness in our lives, in the news, in our businesses, in our work, and how differently we respond. In the mode of ignorance, it's about passivity, perpetuating trauma, neglecting citizens, ignoring students. In the mode of passion, it's about aggression, pacifying trauma with unhealthy coping mechanisms, triggering our citizens, brainwashing our students. In goodness, it's about being assertive, processing trauma, protecting our citizens, equipping our students. The various modes affect all of us, and no body, no sense, no mind is spared the influence. Jonathan Haidt, a moral psychologist, wrote in his book titled The Righteous Mind this, quote, "The first rule of moral psychology: intuitions come first, strategic reasoning second. We're emotional actors, he says. We are highly intuitive beings who act first and justify later. Our beliefs, our convictions, and our values are far less rational than we imagine. End quote. We may think we're all logic, but we are a cocktail of perspective, interpretation, conditioning, and whim. The Bhagavad Gita also agrees there is an order of operations ontologically. In chapter 3, text 42, it's explained that above our body, here's our body, is our senses. And above our senses is our mind. And above even our mind is our intelligence. And above our intelligence is our soul, the ultimate. Often we are taught to unquestioningly follow or automatically shut down our body, our senses, and our mind. We're trained to follow or ignore our various parts because let's follow them because they're perfect, or let's ignore them because they're evil. We should follow them because they're absolute, or we should ignore them because they're inherently worthless. But first, I want to allow any misbeliefs. Our bodies are not the enemy. And no matter how hard society claims, our senses, they are not whack. So many of the cultures that are fed propaganda of their own inferiority are the same culture whose senses are stolen from. Their sense of style, or music, or food, or language, or even rituals. And our minds are vital tools to questioning and testing the norms that we are presented. On my journey to reclaiming my relationship to my body, to my senses, to my mind, I have learned that first, they are wonderful. And second, they are corruptible. They give mixed signals, not because they're bad, but because they're impressionable. The impressionable aspect of them is helpful. It's just as I use neuroplasticity to train my mind, or somatic therapy to integrate my senses. I find the healing process does not result in my information receptors, my body, my senses, my mind becoming now infallible. My body is trained to crave toxic processed sugars that literally give me migraines. And my senses send alert signals throughout my body at the threat of what? Vulnerability. My mind, when chemically imbalanced and swimming in a traumatized world, has on multiple occasions calculated my own self-harm. These data receptors, our bodies, our senses, our mind, they are vital and wonderful. And because of their susceptibility to the modes of nature, to empire, to the matrix, they're not qualified to be the center of our moral compass. They're not absolute, nor are they evil. Going up the chain of the yoga ontology, above our mind is our intelligence. Our intelligence is our interpretation stage. It's the place between a stimulus and an action, who gets to shape our responses based on our values and our goals, as well as in conversation with the data received from our body and our senses and our mind. Intelligence is the stage that gets to shape the change. And since we're already shaped by so many externally and internally, so many elements, internally and externally, we need discipline to fortify and equip our intelligence. Regulation is healthy and needful to the extent it allows one to consciously pick what we wish to be shaped by. And freedom is only real to the extent we can be shaped and shape lucidly. Chaitanya Charan Prabhu is a bhakti yoga monk, and he writes this about the best role for intelligence to take in relationship with our minds, who are the sneakiest of the three. He says this, quote, "The mind may be a drinker or an alcoholic, but the intelligence doesn't have to be a bartender." He continues, "Suppose a compulsive drinker enters a bar and orders a drink. The bartender may be obliged to obey, but if the drinker orders a well-wishing friend similarly, that friend, the intelligence, has the right and even the responsibility to refuse. Our inner world is often like a bar," he says, "as it contains many intoxicating impressions coming from our past indulgences, and our intelligence, with its capacity for discernment, is meant to act like the mind's counselor. The Bhagavad Gita states in chapter 3, text 42, it indicates that the intelligence is ontologically higher than the mind, and functionally, however, the mind often tries to usurp the intelligence. And when the intelligence falls, we too fall. To prevent such a fall, we need to strengthen our intelligence by, his suggestion is, spiritual practices such as scriptural study and meditation. Being thus alerted, the intelligence learns to resist the mind's spells, and gradually, devotional purification sobers the mind. End quote. The intelligence is the director of operations, the strategist that, when given more space and thus power, gets to plot out integrative and sustainable action. So I am not promoting abusing or ignoring our body, our senses, or our mind. I am promoting integration, which only the intelligence can guide us towards. And the intelligence can guide us towards it only if it is given the space to reflect and shape the constant changes and chaos we are in. We are tethered to truth, to our values, and really to the ultimate when our intelligence is in service to the higher ontological authority in each of us, our soul, which is connected to a super soul. The soul is what equalizes us. It's what we defend already, right now, what we're already defending and are trying so hard to remove the barriers of, to unleash its flourishing. It's the foundation of all our UU principles of worth and dignity. We defend and champion these already. The importance of our souls in our past and our present social action. It's in our philosophy. Let me explain. Because our bodies are not all the same. Some are black, some are brown. Others are tall, some are short. Some have disabilities, all have various genders and orientations. There are so many ways our bodies come and can grow. And our senses and our mind do not gather the same information or share the same data points. Some of us have musical senses, others of us do not. Some of us think about niche concepts for years, and others of us couldn't be bothered. Our minds, our senses, our bodies are not the same, thank goodness, and yet we are and must be clear that they are equal. They are equally worthy of respect, of rest, of nourishment, and the right to life, to thrive and flourish, to their natural fulfillment. This is the call of the soul, to remember who we are. We are love. To remember why we are. We are to serve. And this is great news. When the world would have us twisted and turned, locked into the notion of our body, our senses, our mind are bad and evil, or they're all that we have, by spiritual practices, we can remember not only is our body holy, our senses sublime, and our mind a wonder, we are beyond all of them, and our truest identity is our soul, and our intelligence guides sustainable, integrative change for the health and wholeness of all. We give intelligence space to tap into the soul by having regular spiritual practice. Ironically, intentional discipline is how we access true freedom, not the freedom of illusion, thinking we're free agents when really it's trauma and institutions and society and various self-gratifying illusions which shape us. Like we discussed before, the Bhagavad Gita explains that thousands of years ago, not knowing about the three modes of nature doesn't mean they don't exist. It just means that we're ignorant to our power and our responsibility. It means that we get got for months and years and centuries and lifetimes. Look around. I have a belief and a saying that our job in life is to not get got. And if we get got, our job is to get free, to get ungot. That means first, we liberate ourselves from the notion that our bodies are bad or somehow a burden on society. And we read, for this, you can read Sonia Renee Taylor's book, quote, "Your body is not an apology." And it means that we free ourselves from the toxic habit of numbing our senses, and we learn to rest and defend and tend to ourselves well. I encourage you for this to go follow, subscribe the Nat Bishop's project titled Nap Ministries on Facebook, on Instagram, and probably elsewhere on the internet. And it means that we engage, we get ungot by engaging our mind. And we don't shut down our questions or submit to incomplete or dismissive frameworks. Instead, read work by people in marginalized bodies. Lend your ear, your mind, your heart to their wisdom and their sharp takes on this rat race. People like Audre Lorde, James Baldwin, Adrienne Marie Brown, Toni Morrison, and Resmaa Menakem, so many more. And not getting got, getting free, also means we don't herald a new cult or religion to our temporary bodies, to our shifting senses, to our fallible minds. Instead, go back to the source, that which unifies us all. Just as our souls are connected to an ultimate, and return. Remember, refill your precious vessel, recalibrate your compass, and redirect your energy to the river of life. What is it telling you? For this, you can meditate, chant, journal, tarot, pull tarot, read the Bhagavad Gita, make regular, however you do, the practice of giving space to your intelligence and fuel for your soul. This, I believe, is the art of shaping change. No, it's the imperative. It's an action and a discipline birthed from our most sacred and primal instinct to love, our impulse to serve, to heal so we may thrive, so that the rat race calls you and entices you back into the matrix. We can remember what Adrienne said in 2013 in her speech, which was our reading earlier today, quote, "Many of us have been socialized that constant growth and critical mass are the ways to create change, but emergence shows that adaptation and evolution depend more upon critical connections. Dare I say, love. The quality of connection between the nodes in the pattern," end quote. Today, I hope you feel convinced and encouraged to continue or pick up a rich daily spiritual practice, that you give space for the recalibration of your intelligence to love's song, your soul's song, and shape the world towards love.
With gratitude to my dear friend and our guest preacher, Reverend Yanni Hailu. Amen. Each week we split our Sunday morning collection with an organization doing the work of justice and helping those most in need empower themselves and our broader community to be the world that we wish it to be. We split our offering this morning with Connect and Breathe, a former ministry of this church, an organization that emerged from hearing the needs, hearing the possibilities, and building on the strengths and resources that existed in this community. Connect and Breathe is an independent nonprofit that operates as this country's only non-religious, non-judgmental, after abortion talk line. It's a place to connect with someone who will talk with you after you've had an abortion without judgment, without a particular opinion about how you should feel or what you should do. Simply a place to bring who you are and all that you are going through and feeling, to be with another person who will bear witness and know that you are not alone. Please give generously. Our morning's offering will now be humbly and gratefully received. And you have a variety of ways you can give. We try to make it easy for you online so that we might be interdependent and interconnected in this work of building a better world.
Please join me in singing There's a River Flowin' in My Soul.
There's a river flowing in my soul. There's a river flowing in my soul, and it's telling me that I'm somebody. There's a river flowing in my soul. There's a river flowing in my heart. There's a river flowing in my heart, and it's telling me that I'm somebody. There's a river flowing in my heart. There's a river flowing in my mind. There's a river flowing in my mind, and it's telling me that I'm somebody. There's a river flowing in my mind. There's a river flowing in my soul.
Next week, we return with the Reverend Marguerite Belizer's first time with us. Our new assistant minister here at First Unitarian will be helping lead worship, and so I hope you'll all come back again next week. But our work together, our ways of being a church together, that's not just on Sunday morning. And so I invite you now, as we close our service, to really live into our unison words. I invite you now to join me in saying the words that will appear on our screen together as we extinguish the flame of our chalice wherever we happen to be. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
May you identify the obstacles which block the clarity of who you are flowing from your soul. May we all together organize to remove the obstacles which block the flourishing of life for all. May you remember you are beloved and go out from here and be love.